Hey everybody, I thought I would create a video that's kind of a show and tell of sorts. I just finished a project for work that involves using SharePoint Spaces for the first time. I've dabbled around with SharePoint Spaces here and there, but I haven't really had a use case that made sense to create a space that end users would ultimately use. And I thought that this would be a creative way to kind of handle a project that I was given from my leadership to help prepare our associates to come back on campus. Our newest campus is opening up in about a month. We're going to start having people come into the space, and they're going to be greeted with Microsoft Teams rooms. So we have Teams enabled equipment in this new campus, and in an interesting turn of events, we originally planned to open up the campus the same month that we went work from home due to the pandemic. So the building has actually sat empty for a year because of work from home. And now people are coming in, they're going to be, exposed to this new equipment that they've never seen before. They're gonna, see all the benefits and all the nuances of using a Microsoft Teams enabled room. The original thought was to create a long form video, maybe 10, 15 minutes long, that covers all of the different type of equipment we have, the different types of rooms you might encounter, how to do the basic stuff like start your meeting, how to create a new meeting and call someone, how to share your content, things like that. And I worried that it would just get too long in a single video. So I like to split things up into more tactical tips and tricks so that people can, watch just the segment that matters to them. And I figured that a brand new campus like this deserved a brand new experience. And I've been wanting to use SharePoint Spaces for a while. And I think this was a good way to kind of, introduce people to that product while introducing them to a campus they've never been on before. So I wanted to take this time and just kind of show what I made and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from users that I've given it to. They've tried it out, they've given me some feedback, I've made some tweaks, and then share kind of a wish list of stuff that I wish SharePoint Spaces had to make my life a little bit easier or to make these just a little bit more interactive than they already are. So if I go over to my screen here, you can see that I've got our Office 365 at Cerner. This is our large Yammer group. There's about 3,300, 3,400 people in this group, and it's where we share all of the information about anything Office 365. We throw our tip videos on here, we do Q&A through Yammer. It's a Yammer community that's backed by SharePoint. So I created the SharePoint space here, and what I did is I actually went out to the campus a couple times over the past few weeks, and I'm just gonna go full screen here. And I took my GoPro Max. So I have, here it is right here. I have a GoPro Max camera that's 360-degree camera, and I put that on a stick and I went around and I took pictures of different spaces. It has two cameras on it, so it can take a 360-degree picture, stitch it together into a single image. So over here, I'm able to move around, and in the SharePoint space, I actually took a picture right outside of the front of the building. This is going to be a space that nobody's ever come into this space before. 2048 is the name of this pair of buildings. It's the address number. And they've never walked in through here. So I wanted to kind of show what that looks like from the parking lot and kind of have that be the landing spot for me. And you can see right here, I've got these little orbs. These are 360-degree virtual tours that will take you into the different types of rooms that we have set up with MTR equipment. Then I've got a little Yammer icon. If I hover over that, it says click here to visit our Yammer community. If they click there, they'll be able to ask a question. And then it's not overly intuitive how to use a SharePoint space. Like, what do these orbs mean? How does this work? So what I've done is I created a little welcome video that says click here to start. And that's one of my lessons learned is whenever you add a video to a SharePoint space, I'm going to click edit right here. Whenever you add a video to a SharePoint space, this didn't have like any instructions. I didn't want to try to figure out how to put text underneath it. So a creative way to add, hey, click here to start, was I was able to change out the thumbnail. So rather than an auto-selected thumbnail, which is just me standing in front of the buildings, I did a custom image so that I put a little play button on there and I said, click here to start. So it's obvious that like, this is where I'm going to start. It's hopefully going to tell me how to use this page. So I'm going to discard these changes and I'll show you what this space looks like. So as it re-renders here for me, we start with this video and I'll click on it. Welcome to the virtual guide for the newest phase of the Innovations Campus 2048. In this guide, you'll find information about the latest in conference room technology for our Microsoft Teams enabled rooms. To get started, click any of the orbs on this screen and that will bring you into an immersive 360-degree view of that particular type of room. Each of those immersive spaces is labeled with the equipment that you'll find in that particular type of room, and there's some helpful videos in those spaces as well to help you get started using this awesome technology. All right, I'll leave you to look at our guide on your own, and if you have any questions along the way, click this Yammer icon to ask them. So that's just like a little like 1 minute thing. It explains what the orbs do. It explains that you can click here to the left-hand side. You can visit our Yammer group. And then I shared that tip that, our buildings, it's a technology company, so it's 1024, 2048. And then the buildings are building 0, building 1, zero-based, numbering system. But people get confused about like which tower they're going to be in. So I figured like right off the bat, let's solve that right walking in the front door. Another thing I've noticed with this is if they click to maximize it, I'm going to pause that. Whenever I click to maximize it, it shows up full screen, so you can see a little bit better. But I kind of positioned it, I knew I was going to put it above the orbs. So when I referenced like click on these spots below, I pointed down where that's going to be because I knew that I was going to be hovering above those. So that introduces you to the space. And then if they click on any one of these little orbs, these 360-degree tours, that takes them into another 360-degree space that I took a picture with the GoPro. And now they can click around in this space right here, and I've annotated what you're going to find in the space. So obviously this is my starting point for this 360-degree image, and I've got an image annotation. So when you mouse over it, I did alt text for everything, so it's all accessible. A screen reader will say that this is the content display button. When you click on that, I just created these little info cards in PowerPoint. So I made a PowerPoint slide deck. We have some rooms might have a projector, some rooms might have a TV, some rooms might have a wall control to control and turn on the lights and the projector. Some might just have an old school remote. So I figured I would cover all the use cases with these little info cards and say, hey, here's the display. It might be a projector or a flat panel display, but we call them a display in this scenario. And then I've got, here's a camera. This is the type of camera that we've got. This is a poly camera, and it just lets you see people are in there. And then, hey, it can pan and zoom. You can move it over to the whiteboard if you want to have people be able to see the whiteboard. And then I've got, if you pan around, there's the little MTR display. So there's the MTR. We're using these Lenovo ones, and it just tells you like how it works and that you can rotate the screen. A couple high points. And then, of course, I positioned the remote control very strategically to say, hey, there's a remote control. This one has a remote control. Some might have a wall panel. Here's what those look like. And then over here, next to every piece of content, the content display screen in the room, I've got 3 videos. And these videos are little like 1 minute to 3 minute long videos for how to join your meeting. This one is how to start a meeting, and then how to share content. At the bottom here, I just added this based off of user feedback, which is, hey, click anywhere on the background to exit back to the home space. So if they just click anywhere, they get this little pop-up where they can hit the X. Now they're back at home. They can go to, this is what one of our large rooms, like maybe you use this for training. And again, the same info cards are over all this equipment. So you can see when I walk in, there's where my MTR is going to be at the front corner of the thing. This one has a remote in it. There's also these little satellite microphones. So in this space, we've got these little phones that we use as external microphones and speakers that say, hey, here's how this works. This is not a standalone phone. It's an accessory for the MTR. And use the physical buttons to mute the call, all that cool stuff. And this one happens to have these little satellite mics. So I have the same info card for all three of those little hotspots right there. And then again, I have those same three videos positioned off to the left of the screen. So if you click on one of these to open it, this is going to be how to start your meeting. So all of these, I did this one, where I was standing next to the MTR. I mentioned that, like, hey, this one's going to have an external speaker in it. Also, since this is a larger room, I have an external speaker and microphone unit as well. So to kind of explain that, because people are used to seeing those phones, but this is not an actual phone, this is an accessory. Kind of the nuances of the room. And I joined the meeting. It's a scheduled meeting, so I explained how to join it. I walked through step by step how to use all of the controls for the MTR. So, this is what this button does, this is what the next button does. Kind of walked through the more actions. I showed how to invite somebody to the meeting, all that, how to share my content. So that's, how to join a meeting, basically. It's like a 3-minute long video. The next one here is how to start an ad hoc meeting. So I go through how to walk in, tell people that, like, you can click new meeting on the screen, or you can click a new meeting on your computer. You can go to the Teams calendar, you can click Meet Now, and you can just add the room using proximity join. So I show how to do that here. There's my little screen capture from Camtasia showing, here's how you select the room for audio. And then later on, I put this camera next to the screen and I captured me tapping on the screen to show that, hey, you can click on here, you can click new meeting, click to type a name, type Jim McFarlane. I can call him in real quick. He shows up on the camera. So I kind of show, like, how to start a meeting if you just walk into the room and there's not a scheduled meeting already. And then the last one here is how to share content. So I'm showing in that same room that I was in before, a little like huddle space, that I can go in here in my Teams client. I can join and don't use audio because I'm already using the room audio. And then I can go in and I can share just like any other Teams meeting. I'm wirelessly sharing my content onto the screen. And then we have in our space, we have HDMI cables. So I showed how easy it is to plug and play the HDMI cable. It shows in the meeting and it shows on the display at the front of the room. So that's pretty cool. But those videos are consistent from space to space. So again, I click in the middle, I get out of this space. This is the third space, which is where I recorded some of these videos. And it's kind of a huddle room where, again, at the back, they can click around, they can pan and kind of look at, like, how is the room laid out? And I wanted to make them feel like, you can see inside this space before you ever set foot on campus. You can be familiar with, where the equipment is, so you know to look in the right part of the room whenever you walk into that type of room. And then finally, this is a medium-sized room, so it's just a kind of typical one with a projector at the front. Got the MTR on the table. And on this one, the best way to capture it was from the side over here. So I've got a 360 degree from the wall, but I added another area here that says view another angle. So if they want to, they can basically jump onto the table here, and it's the exact same room with the buttons in the same place. It's just a different view of, here's what this room looks like from this angle. I can click back over to the wall and I kind of transport over to the wall so I can see the room from that side if I want to, kind of gauge how big the table is and stuff like that. So that's an overview of the space. It's really pretty basic space. There's only the one space plus 4 360 degree tours. One of them has a nested tour, so there's another layer inside of that. This is the demo one that I made, so I'm going to go ahead and go into here and hit edit and show you how I actually built this. So what I've got is up here at the top, I've got the video web part. This is just a video that I uploaded to the document library. So if I go back over here to this Yammer group, this is my demo Yammer SharePoint site. So if we go into documents, my file structure is that I've got a folder called MTR Virtual Tour. And this was really helpful for building the proof of concept and then moving it over to the production SharePoint site. We've got a folder for 360 degree video tours or tour images. So the different types of rooms are in a folder. I grabbed a couple extra, like of the lobby, the parking lot, outside, which ultimately was kind of my home page. These are the different areas where I've got different images. I was only going to be down there for a couple hours on site. I wanted to take advantage of that, so I took several pictures of every room that I walked into. So I had some high, some low. I could kind of pick what worked the best for me. If I go back out, those are all the GoPro images. This one is all of the info cards. So if I open up this one, this is the PowerPoint info cards that I created. I just made one slide, added the content to it, and then I exported the slide as a PNG at 1920 by 1080 resolution, and I just uploaded that PNG. So there's all the components of the room, so everything's in a consistent spot. And then for the videos, I've got the welcome video right here. There's that custom thumbnail that I created that says like click here to start, kind of guides them where to go right off the beginning. And then over video, I explain how to use it. And then there's my 3 guide videos: how to start a meeting, how to join a meeting, and how to share content. As people come up with other use cases and we find that people are using these in a way that's a little bit more complex than one of these very basic 3, we'll be able to add more videos that are like, you know, here's how you do this, here's how you transfer. You know, we're going to kind of let the business guide us as, you know, they figure out how to do these rooms. We're going to be surveying them and say, what are your common workflows? How are you using these rooms? So that we can take that knowledge, create more tip videos, and then feed these into this folder. Allows us to put a little placeholder on the virtual guide. So that's basically it. We've got the hammer icon there. You got those 3 folders and one extra thing right there. So everything's referenced properly. It's easy to find. I've got a video web part. That's the welcome video. And then these little 360-degree tours, they're not super intuitive of what they are because they're not labeled. The way that I added a label to this pedestal right here is I just added a text label. So over here, whenever I clicked the plus, I added a text web part. And then I was able to put that on there almost like a sign in front of the little pedestal right there. So I can label that this is video enabled, this is a large room with a display, huddle space, this is a medium room with a display. And as you turn around, because of the angle of these, they look like they're attached, but they're actually not really attached to those little orbs. And if I go into one of these and hit the little pencil icon, you can see that I've got the text right there. I made it center aligned. I showed a frame around it. That's kind of what makes it look like a sign in front of there. And then I just kind of played with like the depth and the sizing and all that to get it to look like it's right in front of the orb right there. Now, something that's really helpful whenever you're laying things out on a SharePoint space is you want these to all be perfectly aligned. So what I did is I got the first one of these and I positioned it with my mouse. I moved it around, kind of got it where I liked it. I messed with like the distance from the user, the height, all that. And then I duplicated this to another orb next to it. So if I were to do this and hit duplicate, I get another one next to it. But if I want to spread that out but keep it on the same plane, what I can do is it's really helpful to use these arrows down here at the bottom, this ribbon, because now I can click the little up arrow and I can move it side to side without changing the size of it. I don't want it to go further away. I don't want it to be higher. I just want to move it over so that these are all lined up. You want to use the angle button to kind of line that up exactly where you want it. Then I can duplicate that sign and I can do the same thing. I can change the angle. That was the wrong one. I can click on this and I can change the angle to kind of get it, you know, lined up to where now it's covering up the corners of that. It looks like it's part of the pedestal at that point. So that was really helpful to kind of figure out how to get that all lined up for me. I'm going to go ahead and delete these and get rid of them there. Some of the other stuff for lining up the ribbon is really, really helpful. Whenever you add new web parts, this is kind of an annoyance that I've had with SharePoint Spaces, is this is the default display. I'm kind of like low looking up at the buildings. But what I've noticed is when I go to click a new a new web part, it kind of zooms out and zooms up. So I have basically this platform that I can set things on. So if I wanted to add a new 360-degree tour, I would place that somewhere on here, and then I could give it a picture. So here's all those 360-degree pictures. If I add, like, this is one of our big, like, auditorium size rooms, and there's that, but it doesn't look quite right, and I'm kind of like zoomed too far up. So what I found is easier to do, like, moving it around doesn't really make much sense because that's not where it's going to render the page when it's actually built. So I'll typically add the stuff I want, then I'll hit save draft and go back into edit. This puts me back where the user is going to be, so that now I can take this and I can position it where I want it to be for, you know, what the user's actually going to see. If I'm building from the top facing down, I'm already kind of messed up and things aren't going to line up when I save my work. So it's helpful to save the draft and then go back in and edit. That way you start where the user is going to be in the SharePoint space. And this is where, like, I can get rid of the podium, I can hide it, do all that type of stuff. Again, it's helpful once I get one of these, I can use it to build the other one. So I see that this is 3.6 size. So then now I can put that in here to make it a little bit larger. The reason why it's so much larger, or appears so much larger, is that it is, the distance from the user is only 7, but this one's 20. So now I can take this and I can, you know, click the up arrow and I can push it back basically so that it's not so, you know, gigantic in the person's view. But that's kind of how I laid those out right there using that ribbon and the little tip about saving the default. We covered the thumbnail on the welcome video. The 360-degree tours don't have platforms. So this is something that I asked on Twitter, and I ended up talking to, I believe it was one of the product managers for SharePoint Spaces, reached out to me and was telling me, hey, you can't get rid of these structures in a SharePoint space, but you can if you use a 360-degree tour. I was kind of planning on building a space for each room, and whenever he told me about the 360-degree virtual tour, that kind of lit up the light bulb in my brain to say, oh, well, maybe I should make the space the guide and then put each location in its own tour. That way I have one layer deeper. Now I get exactly what I want. So what I mean by that is I'm in edit mode right now. If I hit space design for this SharePoint space, you have these structures right here. So I can have an amphitheater and you get this like big structure. I can have an arch. And these structures are really helpful because you can kind of like move these web parts so they look like they're inside or part of the structure. But I didn't really want that. I wanted it floating over space because I wanted to kind of look like Google Street View. So I went with the terrace, and then I made my height as high as possible because you can see this is where I took the picture originally, was at 0 right here. That was at like 6 feet tall. Well, I wanted to see the sign. I wanted to see the buildings a little bit better. So I moved myself down basically so that I got this like perspective that it looks like you're actually standing looking at the buildings. A piece of feedback that I got, if you use virtual reality and use like a VR headset, like an Oculus Quest, you'll notice that like a lot of apps and a lot of experiences have this ambient background noise, and I'm kind of used to that when I'm in those spaces. So I thought that would be really cool. I could add like nature or wind or music. I'll let you know, let you see what that sounds like. So that's the music background. I thought like that's kind of soothing. I kind of like that. It's more immersive. The feedback from users immediately was very clear that they were like, I do not want auto playing sound in a browser. And you got to remember your audience. So in the SharePoint space, I'm designing this, and I was getting into VR at the time, and I was designing it for my needs and what I thought was cool. Turns out, you know, 100%, like very, very little, almost nobody is going to look at this with a headset on. They're going to use it in a browser. And one of the worst things you can do to somebody in web design is have auto playing sound. So I took that away really quickly, and I took away the welcome message. what I originally started with was, instead of this video, I had an overview that basically was like, welcome to this space, here's how you do this stuff. Over that music, it kind of ducked down and the music rose back up when my video or my audio message was done. And people were like, I want to take action to hear something in the browser. So I got rid of that. I got rid of the welcome message, and instead I put a welcome video that says, hey, here you are. Click here if you want to hear how to use this space. And now they're clicking an action to start a video. So that's something that I learned along the way, just thinking about the audience instead of thinking about my needs. I'm going to jump into one of these 360-degree tours here by clicking on the Open Tour Builder. And this is where I realized that if I nested it in, I could get rid of that structure and not have to deal with having this big white platform in the way. So this is one of those images, and you can see that with a 360-degree camera, you can get all the way down, and you can zoom, if I can drag it here, you can zoom all the way up. It's 360 degrees, it's all stitched together, and the GoPro does a really good job of stitching it together. What I found is at the bottom, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, this nadir patching, if I turn that off, there's the stitch line from the actual tripod that this was sitting on. It's like on a stick. I wanted to hide that, so I turned on this nadir patching. I made it black so it didn't stand out too much, and then I just put it down all the way as low as I could just to cover that tripod so it didn't look too bad. So that was a lesson learned, was check out the nadir patching, and you can basically hide the tripod if your tripod legs are sticking out in your 360-degree space. Now, in a 360-degree virtual tour, you have a different set of annotations you can do. They're not web parts like they are in a SharePoint Space page, so you don't have like the video web part, the text web part. Instead, you're clicking the plus and you're linking to another image. So if you have a whole string of images down here at the bottom, you can link one to the next, and that's how you could do a virtual walkthrough, like a true virtual tour where you're going to go from the cube area to the break room to the elevators. You're kind of like positioning the image to like a doorway, and then you're going to put a 360 linked image in that doorway, and that will prompt the user to click there if they want to enter that room. Now they're in that room, they can spin around, look at everything, and they can go to the other doorway and go through there. So that's how you make a walkthrough, like a house virtual walkthrough or something like that. Under the annotations, this is what I used pretty much the entire time. I could add text, an image, video, audio file, like a PowerPoint or something like that, and a 3D object. I didn't have any of these bottom three, but I was utilizing images because I have like this mtr.jpg, that's the export from PowerPoint, and I want to show a description so that if you mouse over it, it tells you what that thing is. If you click on it, it shows you the image up nice in a large, shadow box type of a format. The videos, basically you can just link to the video, you can add captions. So when I caption it, I can copy and paste the text in there so it adds accessibility. And again, I want a description so that if the person mouses over it, it explains what they're clicking before they actually click it. One thing that I don't like too much about this is some of the users are like, I don't know how to get out of the 360-degree space. Could you add some text that says, click anywhere to get back to the space, like the X comes up? I wish I could do just raw text on the screen right here and just have it say click anywhere to do such and such. The problem is you can only add icons to a 360 tour. So if I add this and say like click anywhere to go back, that's great, but the problem is it's behind this icon. So now if I go here and I save the draft, if I mouse over it, click anywhere to go back, but you have to like go over there. I kind of wish that I could just display the text on the image itself. And I didn't really feel like getting into like Photoshop and zooming way in and actually baking it into the flat image. I think that would be about the only way that you could do it, would be to type the text on the image before you make the 360-degree virtual tour. So that's a look at how I built those. The last one that I built is over here, this medium room. If I open up the tour builder, you can see I've got this space right here, And you set in the upper corner, you set this as the starting view. Well, I wanted all of my starting view to be basically the content display area. I want to show as many things as possible. So I set that as my starting space. But you'll see that down here at the bottom, I've got, this is the home one. This is where you land originally. But then I've got this second space right here. And this is the view from the table. Remember, I moved the camera around and I took some pictures as I was going. So I thought, well, let's link these together. And this is where, when you click the little plus, you link a 360-degree image. So I did that right here, and I pointed it to this first image, the GS0046. So I said, go to this image when you click and say view another angle. So now when the person clicks on it, it says view another angle. They click their mouse. Now they're back over to the side. It just basically takes you from one image to the next. And then you can see that you can go on beyond then and create a full walkthrough, which is pretty awesome. Some other wish list items that I have listed, I've got some notes on my screen. I wish that the annotations on here had a few more options. Like you can have an image or you can have a camera. I kind of wish that I could change the icon of these right here so that rather than just an image file, if I could put like a little, you know, SVG image of a projector, or this one, if I had like how to join, if I could find an icon that explained join or an icon that explained sharing content, it wouldn't just be video, video, video. It would be, oh, this is how to join because it's this icon, or like, you know, the universal like image for sharing is kind of like an arrow popping out of a box. That would kind of, just looking at it, you would see, oh, that means sharing in iconography. So if I mouse over it, it's how to share content. I kind of wish I could like explain a little bit more with these icons. That would be kind of cool. The thing, I wish you didn't have to have a structure. It kind of limits your creativity. If I go back out to the main space, it kind of limited my creativity right here, but it honestly forced me to make one space and have them nested, which I think ultimately was a better thing for me to do. I didn't have to have like one space linked to another space and have these like full-blown spaces all spread out. I was kind of able to make it a little bit more condensed that way because I was forced to without being able to have the structure right there. A tip that I found out is basically when you go take pictures with a 360-degree camera, take them at different angles, take way more pictures than you think that you'll need, because in some spaces it'll work to be higher, it'll work to be lower. So every space that I took a picture of, I did one very low at like 2 foot off the ground. I did one all the way up, and then I did one at like my eye level, so like about 5.5 feet. I'm 6 foot tall total. And then I ended up using the middle one, but I didn't regret having the high and low, because then whenever you get in a space like this where you've got a structure, but the structure is like obscuring part of the image, you would be able to say, what happens if I go to the tall view, or what happens if I go to the short view? Is the structure not as obtrusive at that point? I was really glad that I had different varieties of images to pick from. On this main space right here, if I click edit, here's what you can add. You can add a 360-degree image. You can do the tour, which allows you to link and annotate. 360-degree video, I didn't do any of those. Objects, document library, a file viewer, so if you just wanted to put a PowerPoint slide deck or a Word document. An image, which is my Yammer icon, is an image. People, which would be an org chart. You could see who reports to who. The text, which is what those little flags are right there, the little room signs. And then the video, which is the video thing. I made a list of other web parts I wish I had here that would kind of open up my, my creativity and allow me to do a lot more. One of those, I really wish that instead of a video, which is just a video file on a SharePoint, so it's going to load the video file, I kind of wish that I could just link to a YouTube video or a Microsoft Stream video. If I have the video already in another place, it's already going to do the adaptive transcoding and all that cool stuff. I kind of wish that I could just link to it so I didn't have to have it uploaded in a separate location. So I would add that. I would also like to have weather, because I think it would be really cool if in this space, if this is the virtual tour, it'd be kind of cool if you had like a live Kansas City little weather widget to tell you like, hey, if you were here physically, it's kind of this temperature, it's doing this in Kansas City. So you kind of, you know, I feel like it would be a little bit more immersive to kind of put you in that spot, because you would see like, oh, it's 68 degrees there and it's raining. Quick links, I wish if you were doing like not a virtual tour necessarily, but if it was going to be like a virtual conference or something like that, just having quick links would be really nice, because you could list like FAQs, you know, what the menu is going to be for the food delivery service, stuff like that. A Yammer feed would be really nice, especially also for a virtual event or a virtual conference. You could have the main feed from the Yammer community, so people could see a stream of what's going on and kind of follow along. Maybe if you could add like a Twitter feed to have like a hashtag being followed, you could show like live tweets in the virtual space. I think that would be really cool. A countdown timer is another one that I would really like to have, because you can have a countdown timer on the SharePoint page. So if you have your SharePoint homepage, you can add a countdown timer for, hey, you know, grand opening of this campus, it's coming in 3 days, and you're counting down to a time. Click here to see the virtual tour. It takes you from the countdown into the virtual tour. It would be kind of nice if you also had a widget in here that was a countdown to a thing. So if it was a virtual conference and you're in there looking at the vendors, you're looking at the, you know, the exposition booths, stuff like that, you would be able to see like a countdown to the keynote, you know? And then maybe that would count down to 0 and it could like show the keynote. That would be really, really immersive to be in this world and then have the world change based off of timers that happen. I think that would be incredible if you could like maybe preload a video or preload like a live event, have a countdown timer, and then have it swap the timer with that video to go live. I think that would be incredible to kind of create that like simulated live experience. An event list would be really good if you could take like all of your breakout sessions, be able to put those in a SharePoint event list. If you could expose that on here and then people could click the breakouts to go to the different little breakout sessions, that would be really cool. And then to get feedback on this, to get feedback on what do you think about the rooms, tell us what you like or dislike about the MTR equipment, or if you were doing a virtual conference and you wanted to say, what do you think about the conference? It would be really cool if you could embed forms on here. So that like at the end of watching a video, you could have a form to like, you know, take a survey about that video that you just watched. I think that would be really handy as well. And you'll see that like this is all kind of weird and messed up. It's like not aligned properly. I didn't move anything. It's just my perspective moved when I hit the plus sign. It did that weird perspective shift. But you'll see if I discard changes and hit OK, it's just going to go back to the way it was, which is nice and lined up exactly how I want it to look. So that's kind of one of the weird things. And I think it's an artifact of me pushing these orbs too far back. I pushed them kind of off the structure. But that's just the way that I landed. That's the perspective that I wanted. So it's been kind of a minor annoyance. Other than that, I'm really excited to try this out. I'm excited to put this in front of users and see what they think about it. I think that this is really cool technology. I think it's got a little ways to go to be, you know, truly usable by anybody for like a wide range of use cases. But for things like virtual tours or a virtual conference where you want to have a conference hall and let people walk into breakout rooms, basically, I think it's really, really cool. And it's kind of got my wheels turning for, I think I want to get another perspective from the front of this overall campus so that I could show that like, well, here's where the cafeteria is, over here's where the gym is, the pharmacy is on the second floor over here in the corner. Here's 1024, here's 2048, kind of label the buildings. I think that would give people the sense of like when they're driving into campus, it's like they've been there before because they've seen this, they've clicked around like a Google Street View. And I think it's really powerful to be able to do that inside of your intranet in your company and have that flexibility to go in the building and show people something without them physically being there. So I think it's cool technology. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. If you guys have any other ideas or questions or, you know, thoughts that you've done with SharePoint Spaces, let me know in the comments below. I'm really excited to check this out a little bit more and do some more experimenting. With that, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, and I hope you stay well. Thanks.